Welcome back to my channel Conquer the Fear. In this video we are going to discuss about the most important Java exception handling tricky questions. So whenever you are attending any interviews, you will be definitely asked for this particular kind of interview questions where it will be based out of Java exception handling. So if you happen to be new to this channel, please subscribe to my channel and also click the bell icon so that you get the notification of every new video which I publish. Now, without wasting the time, I would like to give you the very first questions which is asked in the real interview questions, which is based on the Java exception handling. Now, the version may be different. It might be from Java 5, 8, 11, 17, 21 or whatever Java versions. So these are some of them which are asked. So better you focus on this and then also try out some different exception handling scenarios. Now let us go to the very first question. What will happen when you try to return from the try catch finally? Okay, so you will have one try catch block. Okay, so if you see, there is a try catch and then there is a finally block, but if you see, there is no catch over here. Okay, and then you see there is a return 10 and return 20. Now out of this, can you tell me what is the return value of this get value method which I just showed you? So first is, it is going to return 10, it is going to return 20, or it is going to give a compile time exception, or it is going to throw a runtime exception. Just think of this particular equation and then try to see like what would be the output. I will just show you the exact code static method whatever I've written over here so that you can analyze it. The answer is, it is going to be 20, because no matter whatever it is going to be in the try block until there is an exception, right? The catch will be called up if there is a catch, an exception, but here there is no exception been happening, and then ultimately it is returning 20 over here, because return finally will be called at any cost except that system.exits of 0. Okay, so let me run this and show you. If I try to run this, okay, now you see the actual value would be 20 over here. You see that is the correct output of this. Okay, so whenever I'm trying to return, see actual value is see 20 over here. Now let us take an example of the second one, the exception initialization, the static initializer box. So if you see here, there is a block of code which is actually written over here in the try block, and there is one new class written over here. But if you see, there is a static class, inside that there is a static block, and I'm trying to run do the division and then give the output inside this. Okay, and ultimately if there is an exception, then there will be something which is going to print over here, and then it is going to run it. So these are the four options. What will happen when you run this particular code? So it will print hello, there is a hello, it is not going to print. Then there is going to be a throw exception in initialization error, or it going to be a compile time error, or throw no class definition error. Now among this, which one would you think would be the output? Okay, so let's check it out by uncommenting this, and let me run this for you. Now you will see there is an exception in initialization error. Okay, so this is the error, or this is the option which is going to be thrown up, because if you see in this particular static block, it is kind of trying to do some division in the static itself. So there itself it is going to fail over here, and then it is going to give an exception. Let us go to the third question, which is try with resource. So this particular scenario would be based on the try with resources. Now let me show you the program. I have written the resource over here. I have written some sysout over here. I have written the exception handling, exception block, and then finally block. Okay, that is what I'm trying to do over here. Now here, if you see the remote, this is a static class. This is going to auto close, and then there is a close method which I have written. Okay. Now, if you take a look at this particular try catch block finally, and then there is a class, right? So the question is, what will happen when you use this particular try with resource? So Java, if you have remember this Java that is try with resource is part of the Java 7 features. Now, what will happen, right? When you run this particular program, it will only print the in try method because there will be exception or not exception. We don't know. You have to tell us, or in try and then finally, or in try, in close, and in finally are printed, or whether there will be a compile time error. Okay, so by looking at this, definitely the last option is not looking out because we don't get an exception over here. But ideally, what would be the scenario over here? Okay, so let's see and try to run this. If you take a look at this, the answer is it is going to print 3. That is going to be the 3 things. Now why? Because ultimately it will first finish this, and then it will try to close the resource whichever it has been opened over here. In that case, it is going to go into this particular close thing, and then ultimately it is going to call the finally. Okay, so that's how it will work. Now let us go to the fourth question, that is multi-catch block. Okay. Now you must have been seen that this is one of the popular question when it comes to exception handling, where they try to trick you with giving you multiple exception handling scenarios. So here you have a try block, and then you have some calculation done. Okay, and then this there is an exception being thrown. Okay, for now just just skip this. Okay, now if you see here, okay, I had written this for your understanding purpose, but yeah, just tell me like what would be the output over here. Now if you see, this is going to be the arithmetic or null pointer exception, or there is going to be a general exception, or what will happen, right? Compile time error or runtime error, whatever it is, right? So you have to tell me like out of this particular 4 option, what is going to be the output. Okay, so whether it is going to print that particular file not found exception, or it is going to give you an IO exception, it is going to give you an arithmetic exception or a compile time. Okay, so let's try to run this for, because here there are two things. One is you're doing some operation and then you're throwing something, so there is no finally block also written over here. Also there is one and specific exception which are handling, like there is a multiple catch blocks, and then there is also a exception. Okay, so let's see what will happen. Now you see it is throwing multi arithmetic exception because I'm trying to do the operation with 0, and certainly it is going to throw an exception, and then it is going to give you an error. Let's say if I try to comment this out, okay, and then I try to run this, the output would be really different, right? So if you see here, it's going to be the generic exception because this is going to handle the arithmetic exception over here. Okay, but yeah, this might be a question which also trick you. Now let us go to the fifth question, where it is based on the constructor. Now if you take a look at this, we have a try catch. Okay, and also if you see, there is a failing constructor over here. Okay, so now under this I'm trying to throw some exception over here. Okay, so there is one throw new exception, a current time exception b is happening. Okay, now if you see, what would be the output of this? Object is created and exception is thrown. So here the object will be created and then after it will be thrown, or object is not created and exception is thrown, or the object is created but not initialized, or a compile time error. Okay, so what do you think there will be an thing of that, right? So let's see what would be the output of this. Now see, exception is been caught over here and the constructor has been failed up. So the initialization itself has failed up. Okay, so there is an exception. So ideally it should be the one which the exception is thrown, object is not created, and then it is has thrown the exception over here. Now let us try to see the sixth question. So we have a try, then you have a class which has been called up, then also we are doing some garbage collection, then we are sleeping for some time, then we have some exception being caught up, and then we are getting some message. Okay, so you see under this there is a protected finalize method over here, and then you are trying to see there is an overriding a method that is going to be the deprecated one. Okay, but yeah, definitely we have written this, and then you will have something to run over here. Now whether there will be an exception that is going to be propagated to the caller, exception is ignored, or there will be a java jvm crash, or there will be a compile time error. Okay, so what will be the output, do you think, right? So here you see there is a print which is going to happen. Let's see, let me try to run this and see. The option whatever you see is that it is going to be ignored up, right? So if you see in the finalize method, this has been called up, and then you see there is no exception being thrown also. So ideally this exception is ignored over here. Okay, so that is what it has happened over here, and then ultimately it has got the, it ran the program. So let's go to the seventh question. Now there is, in the static block there will be some inheritance what the program is about. So here if you see there is a try block, so you are trying to create a new instance which is going to call the static initializer over here. So once you call this, this is going to this class will fail to load this because the parent is having the static initialization which is going to fail up, right? So now if you take a look at this, the parent, right, the static there itself, if you see what is happening, it is a true, and then there is an exception, there is an throw clause written over here. Okay, so ideally what do you think what will happen? Child code is going to load successfully, it is going to no class definition while accessing to the third child class, or like there is a class cast exception or a compile time error. Okay, so I think ideally like it will be the B option, because it will throw an the static exception will be thrown up. So exception error in initialization, that is what it will be throwing up. Okay, this is what the error, and then you try to see this. Okay, ultimately it is going to the static whatever it is, right, it is going to throw that exception, and then it is going to print this particular thing over here. Okay, so this is going to be getting the simplified message, and over here it is going to throw an exception. Now let us go to the question number 8. Okay, so there is a new instance going to be the created over here, then there is a catch block, then there is some initialization if throw new exception. Okay, so here you see here while exception is been thrown. So here the object will be created and the exception will be thrown. Object is not created and exception is thrown, or the object is created but not initialized, a compile time error. Okay, so let me run this program and show you. Over here it will be like exception will not be here, the initialization is failed, so there is no object being created over here, and also the exception is been caught, so hence the exception, if you see, it is caught over here and the exception is thrown. So exception also is thrown over here. Okay, so that is what it is happening over here. Okay, because here we are trying to throw an exception, it has been caught over here, and then it is going to be writing that particular thing. Now let us look at the ninth question, that is there is a recursive method which I have written, which I am passing 0 over here, and then from this particular 0 it is trying to increase one of them, and then again it is trying to call this recursive. Okay, so here in the exception also that is caught trying to throw this, so this is going to cause another stack overflow exception over here. But let us look at the exception options, right? So there is the error is caught by outer the cache, the JVM will crash, or the error propagates up to the call, the programs handle indefinitely. Okay, so let me try to run this particular program and show you like whether there will be some exception will be caught up or not. Okay, so here you see the program is still running. Okay, so the program will indefinitely be running over here, and then ultimately it will end up, but here it is going to be the option where the program is definitely hanged up. It is still running over here and there is no stopping it. If you take a look at this is going to throw a propagation error, then it is calling up the stack. Okay, so it is going to definitely call up the stack, and then there is going to propagation is going to happen. Okay, now let us look at the very last question, that is going to be like there is a thread which has got the run implementation, some exception is being thrown, and then you have some thread undefined exception handler over here. Then we are starting the thread, then we are doing the thread join. Okay, so these are all things which we are trying to do over here. And then if you see, the options are what the program is going to terminate, the exception is caught by default code handler, the exception is printed to the std error and the thread dies, or the exception is rethrown in the mainnet. Now let us see what would be the output. Now if you take a look at this is going to be the thread has already started. Okay, so this is already been called up, and the moment it find out, it throws an exception, and then it is being handled, or it is being caught up by the exception handler over here. Okay, now here you see this particular message, whatever you see here is getting printed over here. Whatever the message over we have been throwing over here is getting printed over here. So that is what, so if you see, this is being handled as an option over here. So I hope I was able to explain you all the important or a tricky exception handling interview questions asked in an interview. These questions might also be asked you in the multiple choice interview questions, where you have to answer those in a certain time. Okay, if you are attending any MNCs, the competitive test which is going to be sent out before you are attending any virtual interview. Okay, so make sure you watch this particular video 1 or 2 times, so that you get the understanding of what kind of questions you get it. Also you can answer them, and get a crux of what exception handling happens internally, how the flow works, where you can actually mention those that this will be taken up like this way, right? So always check out those things and then answer those. If this video has given you some value, please give us a thumbs up. Also don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the bell icon. Thank you for watching.